Before we begin, let's give a huge shout out to the sponsor of this video who keeps our lights on here. And that, speaking of lights, is the backup solar bank. In the midst of this whole emergency situation we find ourselves in, one of the best things you can invest in for your protection when the lights go out is what's called a solar power bank. It's a backup power bank that's obviously powered by the sun. It allows you to charge up to 2 devices at once. You'll never have to waste any money on batteries again. Now, supply is limited, and this is your very last chance to get yours at a 20% discount before they sell out. So do not wait. Click on that link below right now. Give you and your family the gift of power anywhere in the world. Click on that link below or visit backupsolarbank.com. That's backupsolarbank.com. You'll be glad that you did.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. Today is 2/17/2021. Well, we just got done with yet another impeachment, or they call it the repeachment. And you got to wonder, like, what are these people thinking? Why would you do it? And then for those people who didn't obey party allegiances, you got to wonder what their future looks like. And here to discuss, our good friend, Dr. Steve Turley, turleytalks.com. Send us an email what you think of the whole repeachment charade. And Steve, so we go through this whole exercise, and then they wanted to call Nancy Pelosi as a witness, and all of a sudden it was over and done with. The vote took place, and now we can move on. If they had this real agenda that they're so anxious to accomplish, why would they waste time? Literally the first act they did as new Congress was trying to impeach a private citizen who's no longer president. What was the gain there? What could they gain from it, even if they were successful?
Yeah. I tend to go with a phenomenon that the sociological literature refers to as resentment politics. I think that explains a lot, actually. Resentment politics is very interesting because obviously resentment is a very powerful emotion, right? It's a visceral indignation of having been treated unfairly. And the key with resentment is it's always directed at others. It always entails an us versus them view of the world. And resentment has always been feared by the political class over the centuries. Scholars have written about this. It's really fascinating. I mean, we could go back to classical Athens and Rome. They were worried about the possibility of rebellion against the political class that was launched largely out of this very powerful sentiment. So what they tended to do, what rhetoricians, political rhetoricians tended to do back in the day, is they tended to foster an internal unity among the people, the citizens, with the political class by creating the specter of a hostile enemy outside. So, and the gist of it is external threats breed internal solidarity. That's how they channeled this very concerning sentiment of resentment in a way that deflected it ever being placed upon the political class. What scholars have noticed, Kerry, since the 1960s is that form of unity that was thought to be the primary way the political class made themselves immune from any kind of rebellion, that ended. And what we started to find is, particularly among Democrats, is there was a rhetoric of resentment that pinned the people versus the people. So what it did is it deflected resentment away from politicians by launching it on and imputing it on a portion of the population. So this is why Democrats have been masters at demonizing their political opponents as racists and bigots and misogynists and patriarchs and the like. What made Trump so amazing is he turned resentment politics in on itself, and he made the political class once again the legitimate object of disdain, such that the new political animosity that emerged is between the people versus the political class, the ruled versus the rulers, the ordinary American versus the oligarchs. And this is what infuriated, I think, the political class, primarily, of course, the Democrats and these feckless rhino Republicans, the establishment. They came together, and what are they trying to do? They're once again trying to stigmatize a portion of the population, 75 million deplorables, with Trump as their leader. So they think they can deflect the sentiment of resentment that was lavished upon them by Trump. They can deflect it away from themselves by trying to stick it back on Trump and his 75 million followers. It's not going to work. The genie's out of the bottle, the horse is out of the barn, pick your metaphor. And already we're just seeing Trump growing in strength and the establishment getting weaker by the day.
Yeah, so we're seeing all this happen, and the Democrats own all three branches of government. Do you think the courts are going to step in? Now they're going for gun control because we all know how evil guns are. Do you think the courts are going to put the brakes on the Democratic takeover?
I do. We'll say, again, I was so upset by them, as a result of November 3rd and their unwillingness to get involved. But regardless, no, I think so. Gun control in particular, I really appreciated a work by a legal scholar named Amanda Hollis-Brusky called Ideas with Consequences, the Federal Society and the Conservative Counter-Revolution. And she devotes a chapter to Heller versus District of Columbia back in 2008, which effectively reversed the court's longstanding position on the right to bear arms as merely a collective or corporate right that state governments were free to regulate however they wanted. The Roberts Court has actually been really good, generally speaking, on Second Amendment issues. This is why every time gun control, wackos come out and start hollowing, and of course we have these horrible shootings and whatnot, mass shootings in schools. And all of a sudden they come out and they say, gun control. Obama starts crying for everybody. It dies down as fast as it rises up because liberals know it's all kabuki theater. Any restrictive gun ownership measures is just going to be struck down by the Supreme Court, which has consistently ruled since 2008 that the Second Amendment's application is to individual gun ownership, which shall not be infringed. So I don't know how they're going to try to. I don't know how they're going to try to get away with it, but I don't see how they can.
Isn't this a loser political issue for them in the first place? Because
absolutely, Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, Pennsylvania, huge dearth of gun owners. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we know that in certain states, blue states in particular, the gun control is all the rage, but in the rest of the country, like where I am in Florida, they want absolutely no part of it. In Texas, in Oklahoma. So these are the states I thought they wanted to win over at some point. Even Pennsylvania, it's a huge gun state, huge hunting population. Huge. Michigan as well. And Michigan's got shall issue. Pennsylvania's somewhere in the middle. Wisconsin reformed their gun laws. Even Puerto Rico has a shall issue statute. So is this that they just don't care, or they have to pay off the far left of the party? Why are they doing it, do you think?
Don't just survive. Thrive. The Financial Survival Network.
Osino Resources is a Ross Beatty-backed gold exploration company in mining-friendly Namibia. Osino's district-scale land package is situated near 2 producing gold mines, one of which Osino's management team previously developed and sold to B2 Gold. Osino's founders and management are experienced mining professionals who have already successfully developed and sold 2 companies in the past 7 years. Osino has an excellent shareholder base with Ross Beatty owning 20%, insiders 5%, and Resource Capital Funds 8%. This is an exploration company with drills turning that you'll definitely want to pay attention to. Osino trades in New York under the ticker OSIIF and in Toronto under the ticker OSI. To learn more, go to osinoresources.com. That's osinoresources.com.
This is the Financial Survival Network, the information you need to thrive now more than ever.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think that's right. I think it's the far left that's the energy in their party, and of course, this is what any socialist Marxist movement wants to do is de-arm the population. But it doesn't really go anywhere. They recognize that they have not made gun control a major issue in ages. They'll do it again. They'll do it during the primaries, but you'll notice it dies down immediately. You mentioned red states or purple states. Heck, blue states like where I am in Delaware. It's one of the easiest places to get a gun, and they don't want to have anything to do with gun control. Vermont doesn't want to have anything to do. Yeah. They're all Second Amendment states. So no, it's a loser. It's maybe a winner in 10 states, and that's it. And I don't expect much. Again, it's a lot. I think it's an attempt to try to drum up the base, get them excited, but it always dies down in defeat.
Yeah, and so it's not a serious effort, in your opinion. I mean, Biden is even reading speeches about it.
Yeah, I don't think so. Again, I think he's doing what he can to try to drum up his base. He's an extremely weak candidate. We all can see that. And he's trying to keep. You have to keep in mind he's trying to keep his base together. We've talked about this before. Democrats, I mean, just look at Portland, look at Seattle. Democrats are going through their own sort of civil war. I mean, things are so wacky out in Portland right now that the mayor, Ted Wheeler, is considered a moderate by Oregon political standards. They just had an election out there, and he was challenged and almost beaten by an overt supporter of Antifa. So what Biden's got to do, and the old bougie, white neoliberal left have got to do, is to try to hold this fracturing coalition together. And they really have two ways of do it: pushing, far left nutty ideas and legislation on the one hand that generally probably go nowhere, and the other one is Trump. I mean, that's the other. It's the resentment politics. Nothing keeps the Democrats together like hating on Trump and the deplorables.
Okay, so getting back to Trump and the show trial. It's just like a Soviet trial. It just reminded me of that, a mock trial. So 7 Republicans voted against Trump. What do you think their futures look like?
How do you spell political graveyard? Already 6 of the 7 have either been censored or are in the process of being censored. Burr in North Carolina and Toomey in Pennsylvania, they're gone. They're retiring, so they're done. But, in the end, no, these guys are politically dead. The most viable one was Ben Sasse. There was a time that Ben Sasse was talked about as a real viable future Republican presidential candidate. That's dead. I mean, he's decided to side with the 5% never Trumpers. And he certainly made peace with it in his own mind based on what he's talking about. But there are more and more pundits are coming out and saying there's just no future for the Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney Republican Party. That is Jurassic. It's dead. That ship has sailed. And again, you just look at it with Liz Cheney having a 13% approval rating.
Wyoming, yeah.
Yeah. It's just not good. She's already getting primaried. She's not gonna win. Mitch McConnell has angered even Lindsey Graham. Even Lindsey Graham has come out and said that Mitch McConnell really needs to start getting with the program. He's insinuating in a sense maybe it's time for you, Mitch, to step on down because you're part. I mean, Mitch McConnell is a brilliant statistician when it comes to Senate protocol and strategy, but when it comes to understanding, it seems to me the new rising nationalist populist movement, not just here in the United States but around the world, he just seems to be absolutely clueless. So no, I don't see any future for any of these guys. Murkowski's up for re-election 2022. I'd love to see Sarah Palin challenge her in the primaries because I think she's very, very weak. So we'll have to see.
It's an interesting phenomena for sure. Certainly, Burr, he can just go back to his career at day trading. on insider information. He seems to be very skilled at that.
That's right.
And hey, so now we see the blue state governors, the ones that deliberately sent their nursing home patients, COVID patients, into their nursing homes. The chickies are coming home to roost. We see Killer Cuomo. We get big disclosures there. Like, oh, no, I wasn't lying. We had the actual numbers. I just didn't tell you. But 15,000 people. Now, a certain number of them were going to die no matter what. Let's face it. But a certain number would still be with us now. He has no conscience. He has no empathy for the people who are gone because of his actions, and he's just left making excuses. But now the truth has come out. Even his own party's attorney general in the state issued a report about his cover-up, and really, this guy needs to be prosecuted. As a former attorney, I think the elements of negligent homicide on a mass scale are present. The guy needs to be prosecuted.
Yeah, you're not alone. That's for sure. Even CNN was reporting yesterday that there are growing calls for his impeachment. New York lawmakers are just swelling in numbers, calling for his removal from office. You know, we've got the bombshell that there was a leaked conversation with his top aide, admitted that data was deliberately withheld on the nursing home deaths. So there's no question. It looks like we've got a massive cover up. I mean, if you just punch in Andrew Cuomo on a Google search today, you'll see it all. I mean, he has not been able to keep a lid on this, and this has exploded, and that's it. It's done. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he could pull off, a Virginia governor thing and just say, well, I'm not leaving. I don't care. I don't care if I won my election by calling my opponent a racist, right north of mine.
Right.
I'm gonna stick, you can't get rid of me. So blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, if Cuomo were to go down in New York, along with, Newsom in California, yeah, I mean, those are two of the biggest rising stars in the Democrat Party for presidential politics. I mean, Cuomo was just fawned over last spring with the advent of COVID as the true leader of our recovery in this war against the virus and blah, blah, blah. And that's
he wrote a book.
I mean,
he wrote a book.
Yeah.
And he got an Emmy.
Yeah, he wrote a book. He got awards from Hollywood. It was absurd. And again, it does go to show the extent to which we're living in the midst of what scholars call virtual politics. Virtual politics aren't so much real as they're broadcasted. It's really like Hunger Games in a way, where you just have these massive corporatist globalist media conglomerates, putting on their makeup and lights, camera, and action, and really our politics are being directed by a bunch of far left-wing producers and directors, and all our politicians have their parts to play. Of course, Trump was the mean, evil dragon, the ogre, the orange ogre who's trying to eat up and destroy democracy, and people like Andrew Cuomo and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Gavin Newsom, they're all there to save the day and bring confidence and transparency to government. It's all falling apart. It's all collapsing. Nobody buys the kabuki theater anymore, and you're seeing it in the media's ratings and the rise of alt-tech and alternative media and independent content creators like yourself. So it's awesome stuff. It's a great time to be an independent content creator, that's for sure.
I couldn't agree with you more. Hey, so Gavin Gruesome Newsom, he's on his way out. The polls say, but 49% of the people approve of him. I put as much credence in those polls as I did in the election polls, presidential polls. It looks like he's on his way out. And how much longer before they get Murphy the murderer in New Jersey and Gestapo Gretchen up in Michigan and that crazy guy Wolf there in Pennsylvania? They all did the same thing. The same thing.
Yeah, Exactly. In many ways, if Cuomo goes down, they all go down. We'll have to see. So, Gavin Newsom is interesting because, he just won in 2018 with, I think he got over 60% of the vote. Again, he was considered to be a real rising star. So even if they say he's got 49% approval, I mean, that's a significant fall from where he was just a couple of years ago. I've seen some polls where he's down in the low 30s. We'll have to see. They got the 1.5 million signatures to force the recall. We're going Gray Davis all over again here. We'll have to see if it's successful or not. But just having that recall is enough to blemish his political career. California, I think we've talked about this before. California is ready to turn red. It really is ready for the taking if the Republican Party in there can tap into the populist sentiments. They can't be ideological conservatives. That's for Texas, or that's for Wyoming or Idaho or something like that, or Tennessee. That's where you can have a really strong ideological conservatism. Here, you just need good old-fashioned populism. People versus the political class. These tyrannical, hypocritical tyrants who impose these COVID restrictions on us and then turn around and think that they're completely immune from their own restrictions. If you tap into that, which happened back in, 2002, 2003, with Arnold Schwarzenegger coming to power, and then he transformed into Greta Thunberg. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. This massive hulk of a man turning into a 17-year-old Swedish climate activist. If you can tap into this notion that you've been pulling the wool over the people's eyes for too long, the people are going to stand up. We've had it enough. You tap into that rhetoric. And as a representative of the Republican Party, California goes red. They are ready to blow. They have had, especially business owners and the like, they have had it. So, it looks like Newsom, regardless of how this turns out, it looks like his political days are done. We'll see. He may be able to resurrect himself. He's young enough. Cuomo, I don't think so, but Newsom will have to see.
Yeah, well, the sociopathic leaders of the party, the whole lockdowns here that are still continuing in these blue states. And the irony is they were so critical of my state, Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis, because he didn't succumb, or he quickly ended the lockdown and didn't succumb to additional calls for more restrictions.
Right.
Our COVID rate is less than in California. I mean, it doesn't matter. They've accomplished absolutely nothing. And our COVID rate's still lower than New York State. So when you take all that into consideration, and then the videos of their stormtroopers going down to shut down businesses because you don't have, the right awning on or something like that, and people might get COVID. Those are all over the web. All over. Doing a victory dance and all that goofiness. I think, didn't DeSantis just say it the other day, Kerry? It was so awesome. He's like, how many how many Florida license plates do you see in New York? I mean, that says it all. It's almost like a Reagan kind of thing. Like, if you open your gates, what do the people do? Do they run into your country or do they run out of your country? I mean, no, Florida's coming out of this as one of the champion states. Texas has done great as well. No question about it. I mean, Ron DeSantis is a rising star in the Republican Party, as he deserves to be. Watch him in 2024, 2028. And he's young, and he's conservative, and he's just fantastic. And he was tested. His leadership was tested. And we will definitely have no problem putting him up against Cuomo's record any day. Absolutely. Could not agree more. I mean, initially, 1 million people became unemployed instantaneously in Florida with the lockdown, and our unemployment insurance system melted down because no one ever expected 1 million apps to hit it at once. And then, all these other things that occurred, not in his control, but he did end the lockdowns as soon as possible. And that's made all the difference in Florida. It's booming here like you can't believe. And, well, as far as his future goes, we'll have to see. Hey, Steve, where do we find you now? Where do we connect with you on the web? And and follow you?
Oh, thanks for that, Kerry. Yeah, they can just go to my website. It's my last name, Turley, turleytalks.com, like TED Talks, all one word, turleytalks.com, or just punch my name in, Dr. Steve Turley, on YouTube, and you can check out all our videos there as well.
All right, excellent. And there's a link, as always, in the show notes to this interview on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Make sure you go sign up for your free newsletter. Steve, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming by.
My pleasure, Kerry. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.